Hello, everyone. Good evening, Istanbul. Good morning, Montreal.
Morning.
Today, we are hosting Dr. Tolga Kurt'a. We will be talking about detecting money laundering, artificial intelligence applications. I want to give a brief introduction about Tolga. Tolga Kurt received his bachelor and master degrees in YTÜ University Electrical and Electronic Engineering department, and after that he got his PhD in Ottawa University. Following his PhD, he was responsible for the 4G product line within Ericsson Canada, and after that, for like 9 years, he managed his first startup, +1 -1, working in operational optimization for banks in the financial businesses. He switched his interest, and he's currently the managing partner of AI-based AML solutions company H3M, based in Montreal, Canada, building AI-based anti-money laundering solutions. And today we'll be hearing about these works, I guess. Tolga has extensive research and development project management experience, which has been translated into product in more than 40 countries. He has managed more than 15 international software projects, 25 national research and development projects supported by TÜBİTAK and EU funds. 2 of them is international EU projects. He has published more than 5 patents, 10 journal articles, and 30 international conference papers. Due to his work in big data analytics, he has been selected for MIT Technology Review 35 under 35 list in 2014 and selected as the Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Turkey 2013. Okay, thank you, Tolga. It's nice to have you in our Grad Talks. Okay,
it's nice to join you.
You are on the air. Okay.
Thank you very much. And I remember those years when I was young, getting awards for being young scientists and young things. And you shouldn't have told the years, actually, which year I got them now.
That's why I skipped the years.
Okay. So hello, everyone, and hi from Montreal, Canada. Today, I would like to talk about our recent studies in the last couple of years about applications of artificial intelligence in detecting money laundering. Money laundering has always been important globally, but in the recent few years, actually, it has taken quite a few more interest, both nationally and internationally. And people started seeing more of those things on the news, perhaps due to the increase in cryptocurrencies and related subjects. Also, COVID had a lot of effect in that as well. So I'm pretty sure almost all of you heard about money laundering. This time, I'll talk about how to stop money laundering using artificial intelligence and why I got into this domain. Now, I'll first start by explaining what H3M is. H3M stands for Helping Humans Help Machines. So 3 H's and an M. And the reason it's called that way is we're working on a technology called active learning. Active learning is about AI asking questions to learn. And we'll look into more details as we progress throughout the presentation. Especially, it's important when you have large unlabeled data and expert knowledge. So it's a technology to combine, let's say, the power of the machines with the experts' expertise. And we decided to utilize that technology in the domain of anti-money laundering and develop tools and the software called Croton to fight anti-money laundering, to fight laundering globally. This is our founding team. My other 2 partners, Dr. Ketenji is head of AI and analytics, is from Polytechnique, France. And Dr. Safkan, who's a PhD from MIT and ex-Googler who worked on those algorithms for the last couple of years. Now, I'll start by trying to explain what money laundering is. So I call money laundering the prime evil And the reason that I call that is every kind of illegal activity, whether it's tax crimes, whether it's fraud, embezzlement, drugs, theft, bribery, human trafficking, whatever you call, at the end of the day, those are just businesses. So they have to be profitable and generate cash. Now, in order to generate cash, they have to, the people who does the fraud or theft or whatever, or smuggle humans, they have to spend that money, either reinvest it in their illegal business or spend it, buy houses, etc. But the problem is, in most countries globally, you cannot go to a bank branch and just deposit $2 million. They ask, where did you find it? So the problem that they have is they need to place that money, which is acquired from illegal means, into the legal financial system. And that's called money laundering. So they're basically washing the dirty money and making it clean money. But in order to be not to catched by the officials, they have to do a couple of different steps. The first one is the placement. So how do you deposit that cash into the financial systems? Then mixing it or layering it. So you send it through multiple banks and institutions, multiple shell companies. So you try to hide the path of the dirty money. Then also you try to create at the last step fake income, so that if someone asks, how did you buy that house by the Bosphorus? You say, oh, look, I sold this kind of thing. So that's basically the well-known 4 steps of money laundering. But you can have better examples by looking to recent news and media. First of all, if you haven't watched, I strongly advise the Ozark show in Netflix. It's about a professional money launderer in the States who is trying to launder the Mexican cartel's money. So you get most of the basics of that laundering operation. One of the largest ones that has been catched was related to Malaysia. So if you search like 1MDB fund, there was this in the Malaysian government a couple of years ago, they funneled about 1%, 2% of their GDP into a code, which said to develop the future of Malaysia. But actually, the government, the officials, just like this guy here, embezzled that cash, and they bought artworks, they bought grand yachts, and they even bought this crystal piano for Miranda Kerr. So that was one of the things how the officials catched. They gifted Miranda, this guy gifted Miranda this crystal piano. So then that raised some eyebrows. But very recently, like a couple of days ago, you might have seen there was this leak in Twitch. So even like Twitch has been used to launder money. And just briefly how that works is, let's say people who has illegal cash in their hands, they were paying or sponsoring very low profile Twitch presenters or Twitchers, let's say, and they were giving them, let's say, $10,000 a month and taking 9,000 back. Typically, the cost of laundering money is about 10%. So, when people try to wash money, they try to keep it in that way. So they're okay leaving $1,000 to the person when they're laundering $10,000. So once they get the money back, so basically they are getting it from Twitch. And they actually, with each that transaction, they launder $10,000. So that was recent news. So there are multiple ways of laundering money. In particular, art market is utilized. And the important thing is when you are using different means for money laundering, especially markets like art markets, where the value of something is not cast in stone. So let's say you bought a painting for $1 million. Nobody would ask anything if you sell it for $10 million. And those kind of things are utilized to launder huge amounts of money globally. Now, one method, let's go from laundering to different methods. One method, well-known one, a basic one, is called smurfing. So I'll explain. It has some applications in countries in Turkey and US and all around the globe. And one of the Fed chairmen in the 60s named it under the Smurfs. So the idea is this. Let's say you have $1 million that you collected from a couple of different cities in the States by selling Mexican drugs. And you take the money in cash, and you have $1 million in cash in drug money, and you want to put it into the system. Now, if you go to JP Morgan and Chase and try to deposit $1 million in cash probably in $20 bills, they won't take it. So the idea is you find 1,000 people with working commission, and these 1,000 people will all deposit $1,000 each to the bank. So those people are called the Smurfs. So once they deposit the $1,000 to the ATMs or bank branches, then by using web transfers, for example, or money transfers, the 1,000 Smurf transfer money to 100 people. Then that 100 people transfer that money to 10 people in another bank. So that $1 million is gathered in the financial system. And the initial introduction of the money was made by 1,000 unknown people, which are called the Smurfs. So that brings us, why do we care? And how big of a problem is this? According to United Nations, each year, about $2 trillion of dirty money is laundered globally. $2 trillion is 2,000 times $1 billion. And it's each year. And it corresponds to a significant percentage of the global economy. And how are we coping with that globally? Globally, only 1% of that can be detected. And 10% of that 1% can be gathered. So we are around 0.1% range in terms of recovering that dirty money. So we are quite unsuccessful globally. And there are some softwares, traditional softwares, non-AI based softwares, who generate thousands and thousands of alerts to the financial institutions. For example, in Turkey, there are hundreds of compliance people working in the banks trying to catch those suspicious activity. In Canada, for example, Scotiabank, one of the top 5 banks here, have about 1,000 people working on catching dirty money. And they have their own building outside of Toronto just for that 1,000 people trying to find the dirty money. So it generates quite a lot of cost and effort globally to catch dirty money, but we are colossally unsuccessful and failing. And that's why we said we're just, let's say, 3 smart guys. Let's, try to utilize our experience and AI doing something good. So that's why we started this company and trying to change this scheme, at least in a little bit. Every bit counts, because from my point of view, the more successful we are in anti-money laundering, the less successful are the drug traffickers, human traffickers, all those evil on earth. They start to fail to some extent, at least. And I like it this time, and this is my second startup, and this time my son is about 7 years old, and he can explain in a very cool fashion to his friends what his dad is doing. And when they ask what your dad is doing, and he says he's building robots to fight evil. So I'll go with that. So again, I'll talk about now different things that we do. How do we utilize the AI and how it's different from catching those systems? So there are a couple of steps, and we have a software called Croton, and I'll try to explain step by step how the system works. But first, a little bit history lesson. We are all, almost all of the people in the call are Turkish origin, so we love Mediterranean and ancient philosophy here. So the name Croton, our software platform, comes from a small town, Croton, in southern Italy, which was back then a Greek colony. And the importance of that Greek colony was the famous Pythagoras of Samos founded his academy there. And in his academy, he had two different types of disciples. One of them was called the mathematikoi, and the second one was called akusmatikoi. The mathematikoi was probably people like me, engineers, scientists on that age, mathematicians, technical people. And akusmatikoi are the, let's say, sözelci people, they're non-technical people, but they have more, let's say, experience, worldly experience. Now, we are mimicking that approach in a sense that in our platforms, we try to utilize the know-how of the experts who have been fighting this money laundering for many, many years, and the capabilities of AI. Hence, the name, as I mentioned, comes H3M, helping humans help machines. And it has applications. We have clients in capital markets, wealth management, digital payment channels, leasing, of course, retail banks. And how the traditional systems work there. So I'll try to explain once. Now, we covered what money laundering is. Let's say the traditional way to detect money laundering and fight with it is by using rules and scenarios. So for example, this one is typical rule. It's called excessive change in account value. So it tries to identify if someone's accounts increased significantly in the last month in an unexpected fashion. So let's say there's a scenario defined. So the account value for last month is an input. Percentage increase compared to last month is another input, and it has some thresholds. So for example, if someone has $100 in their account, a 100% increase is not that much because it's just $200 now. But if they have, let's say, $500,000 for the last 12 months, and suddenly it increased to $1 million, that's a flag. And also, if they have been reported as a suspicious activity in the past and things like that, and they all have weights, and each person, each day in a bank, let's say they get a score out of 100, and then there's a threshold. If it's above that threshold, then an alert is generated for the analyst to review that person's financial activity. Another example is structured ATM deposits. So we mentioned about Smurfs and depositing cash. For example, this is typically utilized by illegal gambling organizations. So for example, this type of rule this time takes, let's say it says minimum number of 10 deposits from ATMs in the last 15 months. So for example, consider yourself, how many times as a normal person, a standard financial activity person, do you go to an ATM and deposit cash? And if it is, let's say more than 10 times in the last 2 weeks, there's something suspicious about it. Now, the range is also important, how much you deposit, but also the number of locations. So if that person is depositing cash from the same ATM location, that's something. If it is, he is depositing the cash from 5 different locations in Istanbul, that's another thing. But in the last 2 weeks, he's depositing cash, once from Istanbul, once from Izmir, then Adana, Kars, Ardahan, then that's completely a different story. Maybe it's a stolen card or something else, or QR code is shared. So again, each of that has a certain score associated with it. For example, if it's between 3 to 10 different locations, you get 10 points, etc. And then overall, you have another score from this rule. So in total, there's usually about 100 different rules in the bank. And each rule is run on a daily basis to detect suspicious activity. And if they detect it, they report it to an institution called Financial Intelligence Unit, which is MASAK in Turkey. Now, coming to what we are doing differently. Now, the first thing that we do is using machine learning-based methods to detect suspicious activity instead of rule-based systems. And the reason that we do that is each rule, as you can see, only takes a couple of inputs. So one rule is looking at the ATM deposit, the other one is looking at the account increases, another one looks at the address change, whatever. Now, however, there are two different major issues with that approach. The first one is criminals are not stupid, right? We mentioned that $2 trillion are laundered globally each year. And the commission, the potential commission earned by the professional money launderers, multiply that by 10%, $200 billion business. So you can't catch billion-dollar criminals with just simple rules. I was so naive. So those rules are mostly known by the criminals as well. So they try to go around it. That's one thing. The other thing is some suspicious activities can be detected by only looking at the whole financial and customer profile of that company or person. So we built a technology module called Suspect Miner, where instead of take 100 rules, it takes all of the data, customer data, transaction data, third-party data, and creates alerts about suspicious activity. For example, it takes age, nationality, maximum ATM, minimum ATM deposits in last month, interbank transfers, occupation, number of deposits, everything is fed to a machine learning system. And on a daily basis, each person is ranked between 0 and 1, which gives an idea on their suspiciousness probability. And then they are reported. Now, how does that machine learning system work? Now, those of you who worked in similar systems know that there are techniques like supervised learning, etc. You have to teach the machines something, in order to determine how does those parameters come together. For example, a 16-year-old boy sending $1 million to Russia is suspicious, right? But how does the machine learn it? Machines do not have common sense like us. So you should have a labeled data that the machines look and learn. Now, from this system, what happens is we look at, for example, last 2-3 years of past decisions by the analysts, so that the system identifies what kind of people were reported to MASAK, Financial Intelligence Unit, what kind of people were not reported. And from there, it builds its own logic determining suspicious activity, okay? Now, there's a problem with these approaches. There are other companies doing that, but there's a problem. The problem is the machines are learning from past decisions. So the best that they can do at this point is to replicate what the humans are doing maybe in a fast and more efficient manner, but they cannot find previously unknown suspicious activity because they are learning from what the humans did in the past. So, which brings us to H3M, helping humans help machines. So, this is where we introduce the active learning technology. And active learning is teaching machines how to learn. And it is initially utilized in the healthcare domain before we did. And it's easier to explain how it works in the healthcare domain. So let's say you'll have 1 million of scans looking for brain tumors. Okay, you have 1 million of these heads. And about 1,000 of them were labeled by the doctors as suspicious or not. All right. Now you want to build a machine learning model which will estimate by just looking at this image and saying that this person is sick or not. In our case, it's suspicious or not. Now, in that manner, it would be great if we had not 1,000 labeled samples, diagnosed samples by the doctors, but 1 million of them. But you don't have enough doctors, labeling time, or money to do that. So the question is this: which 10 pictures should I show to the doctor to label them so that when I'm tuning my model, the machine learning model will learn most? For example, let's say there are 20,000 scans I have, which is unlabeled, which are very similar to each other. And on the left-hand corner, they have something, gray like this. So let's ask a couple of them. If the doctor says, oh yeah, that's something suspicious, then I can label 20,000 of them. Or the system asks, the machine asks to the doctor, says, look, I have exactly similar 2 different pictures, like for example, these 2 here. And says, look, doc, you said one of them was suspicious, one of them was clear. Why? And the doctor checks them, says, oh yeah, one of them, they look exactly similar, but one of them is a scan of a 15-year-old girl, the other one is a 60-year-old man. Then you say, my machine learning model is missing 2 features. I need to add age and sex to the model as well. So not only you found new suspicious like gray areas, you also determined missing features. So that's what we apply to the application of artificial intelligence in compliance. So initially, we built a model based on the previous decisions of the analysts. Then that model is fine-tuned in an iterations by AI asking questions to the analyst. And let's have a quick 4-minute video on, which briefly explains that technology. Teşekkürler tekrar.
Thank you.
Şimdi burada gördüğünüz gibi hani Active Learning teknolojisi aslında bu oluşturduğu sorularla normalde bulunamayan şüpheli işlemleri de bularak önemli bir katma değer sağlıyor. Mesela şuradaki gibi 100'e yakın öz nitelik kullanılıyor. Hepsi tek bir modele giriyor. Türkiye'de şu anda Akbank ve iştirakleri, yatırım, leasing, işte TOS'la olarak biliyorsunuzdur belki Akkode, Akportföy, Yapı Kredi, İş Bankası gibi. Mesela Türkiye'deki çalıştığımız bankalarda örnek vermek istedim. Burada geçtiğimiz yıl mesela 40.000 tane şüpheli işlem tespiti yaptık ve %98.4'ü bunların gerçek uyarı olarak masaya raporlandı bu sistemler ve çok ciddi anlamda kullanım görmekte. Kanada'da, Pakistan'da, Amerika'da farklı yerlerde de aynı şekilde uygulamalarımız mevcut. Şimdi bundan sonra bizi bir sonraki aşama bekliyor. Şimdi bu da ağ analizi. Para aklama aslında, let me just switch to English, sorry. The next step here is that the link analysis. Link analysis is actually the, let's say, a new frontier here, because the suspicious activity detection, when you're looking at a single entity, a single person or a company, you may miss the money laundering activity. If someone is sending, for example, you $5,000, there's nothing suspicious about it. But there are 100 people sending each other $5,000, that's something else. So regardless of how good your models are or how good your scenarios are, you will still miss suspiciousness from a network perspective. So which brings us to the network analysis part. So we have another solution called Link Miner, which is detecting suspicious activity by relations. So first we convert everyone in the financial institution to a graph network. So each person is connected to another one if they send money to each other, receive money from each other, or they share some CRM features such as they live in the same place, they're partners in the same company, they work in the same company, so on and so forth. So there are multiple ways of connecting people and companies together in a graph. Now, the other thing is the connection strength. So the more transactions you make with someone, the more connected you are. Now, the next step is you take the suspiciousness from the previously known, let's say, money laundering or illegal gambling nodes, and you propagate it to the other nodes from the connections. Now, the reason that I mentioned Google in the beginning of the presentation is this. We use a similar algorithm, like the PageRank algorithm of Google, where it uses to rank your searches in the search engine. And how does it do that is, for example, if your website get a link from another one, with that keyword, you get upgraded in the list. Now, the more links you get, the higher in the list you'll be. In a similar fashion, also, if you get that link from my website, it's something. But if you get that link from the White House press release, that's something else. Now, that being said, the next thing that we do is we propagate suspiciousness from the suspicious nodes to unsuspicious ones, unhiding hidden links in the money laundering networks. And currently we can identify 10 million nodes and 1 billion connections between them in less than 45 minutes in that processing. And at the end, we detect money laundering rings like this. This is a real network from Turkey. This is an illegal gambling network. The outermost part are the first collectors of the gambling bets, and they move it to inner circles. And at the center, there is a company who is on the paper legit, but actually their whole business was gathering millions of dollars of illegal gambling bets. And this is a huge problem in Turkey. In Turkey, billions are lost each year in this illegal gambling rings. And the money is usually transferred outside of Turkey and from the central node. And currently we are cooperating with authorities, to improve our fight against the illegal gambling organizations. Now, also, these technologies can be used in searching the flow of dark money. So this is also another real example. The money comes into the bank from this node and it hops through 11 different nodes, plus minus 5% change, then goes to another bank. So we also work on technologies in carving out the suspicious money flow out of the normal, let's say, legit money flow. That's also another important thing. And graph learning and graph theory algorithms are utilized in in-depth fashion in those kind of solutions as well. Now, I'll bring an example that actually we are cooperating with Yıldız Technical University departments, and we're working with Professor Özbakır from Yıldız Technical University in this project supported by TÜBİTAK as well. But it's money laundering. The project is about detecting money laundering in New Zealand real estate market. So we are working with the authorities in New Zealand to detect the money laundering networks in the real estate market. The real estate market is one of the largest areas that money is laundered, because you, let's say, purchase a real estate which is initially worth, let's say, $500,000, and you pay, let's say, $10 million. And then you make another exchange, make $12 million. So each time you actually inorganically pumping up the price, but by just giving the commissions, you're just exchanging from one hand to the other and laundering the money there. So these are some of the laundering networks that we detected in the New Zealand real estate market in different locations. And how the system works is there are previously known estates which have been confiscated by the New Zealand government. Now, by doing a network analysis, you can connect companies who were actually part of those transactions. And if those companies make new transactions in between them, probably that new real estate is also utilized for money laundering activities as well. So there are a couple of different things that you can see that we detected throughout New Zealand in this project. Last but not least, to give you an idea on how we fight this on a global level, this is a European Union project, Horizon 2020 project consortium that we had a couple of years ago. Throughout the globe, this is a global problem. It is not a problem of Canada, this is not a problem of Turkey, this is a global problem, money laundering. And currently we are working on multiple R&D projects in the global level to improve the algorithms as well as improve the utilization of AI for financial intelligence units and financial institutions alike to know, to make a change actually in this fight that we are losing against crime. And in this presentation, in a short time interval, I tried to give you a brief overview of what our fight is about and how we are using technology to do that. We do believe that what we are doing is a meaningful and valuable business for the globe and all the international community. So we are very motivated, and hopefully we will make a change. Thank you very much for listening, and we can take questions now.
Thank you, Dr. Kurt. Tolga hocam, teşekkürler. If you have any questions and comments, for myself, I have some notes I will ask. If not, well, okay, we are ready for the questions or any comments. Sormak istiyorum. I want to ask a question for myself. Your part of the job is to decide or to detect the suspiciousness, right? You score the unusual activities, like my unusuality is different than yours, maybe.
Yes.
So this is the information you give your customer, and the action is taken by them, right?
Yes, that is correct. So how it works is, as you mentioned correctly, that we call them population groups. So each population group have their own normal. So, for example, your financial activity is quite different from Koç Holding, and that's quite different from a small institution. So that you have these population groups, and you need to identify the anomalies and suspicious activities for each population group differently. What we do is we create those alerts to the, let's say, to the bank compliance department. Say, look, there might be something suspicious here. Then they start their analysis, they create their report, and they send it to financial intelligence units. If they say, okay, this is actually truly suspicious activity, to MASAC, for example. And then if MASAC investigates, they have other sources of information as well. They give it to the authorities, to police force, and to judges to move forward with that investigation.
Actually, me myself was one of the victims of this process. When I was a student in Japan, I was about to go to Kenya for a conference, and my flight was transferred from the Bangkok. So my flight was like, I don't know, 16 hours. I was in Tokyo, purchased something, I don't know, eat some food, and I was in Bangkok a couple of hours later. And after that, Nairobi and Mombasa. When I get to Kenya, my credit card, Citibank, was blocked by the bank, and I couldn't deal with from Kenya. And I was credit cardless in Kenya, and I had to loan some money from my friends. So this is, they decide the suspiciousness and they act.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, any questions? Ömer, can you help me? Ömer, belki yardımcı olabilirsin bana bu konuda. Türkçe sorular da alabiliriz arkadaşlar. Bilingual bir seminer, gördüğünüz gibi.
There is a question on chat.
Yes, let me catch that. Görüyorsun Ömer, sen okuyabilirsin. Soruyu şu an yakalayamadım ben.
If you want to be part of something like AI things, what our first best step must be as a student? I think he asked for a recommendation for the first step of artificial intelligence.
So, I mean, there are quite a few of available tools online, and if you're just starting from scratch, I would suggest sites like Udemy, or there are a couple of different sites that you can learn. Of course, you have to learn to program in Python, and almost all of the data science things are done in Python now. And once you do that, I strongly suggest entering Kaggle competitions. And there, they give you data, and there's a task in Kaggle, and you can compare your methods and solutions to the experts globally, and those would be very good ways to improve your skill sets.
Any more questions? How will those KVKK issues, the personal, you know, KVK.
Yeah. So how it works is all of our installations are on site. So we actually don't see the data. The compliance departments see and report the suspicious activity. So the bank is not leaving, the bank's data is not leaving the premises. So basically there is no issue there. And between the banks or financial institutions and MASAC, reports with respect to money laundering are exempt from KVKK because it's a legal process. So they can share anything with MASAC or the government in that sense, if there is a laundering suspicion.
And also like your project with the New Zealand real estate market, is that the data public or they share something confidential with you?
No.
Like the bank is sharing something confidential, right? Or using your software to detect something, but real estate market is the open activities you are using, right?
Yes. There's a OpenGIS initiative in New Zealand, Canada, and a couple of countries in Australia as well. So basically government publish all of these data and it's open to everyone to download. It includes last tens of years of all real estate transactions, who bought what, to what extent. So that's all public data.
Okay, another question is on raising hand. I am unmuting Emine.
Emine?
Yes. Thank you for your presentation, sir. If I understand true, Croton model you mentioned give weight to features according to their importance. So normally in machine learning and AI, artificial neural network models we use, they learn from past experience. And also in the Atm model, you should you study with banks, you work with banks. So features always increase, such as number of people attend. So Atm model also learn past experience, but I don't understand the decision-making principle you mentioned in active model. So what is the difference between the traditionally we use machine learning and artificial neural network principle? Thank you.
Thank you, Emine.
So the difference is this. The first step is the same. It's supervised learning. So you have previously labeled data, right? Some of these people or companies have been raised flag in the past, and some of them was reported to financial intelligence units, and some of them was cleared, deeming non-suspicious. Now there's that data to tune the model with a traditional approach. Now the problem is, let's say there are 10 million customers with different values of features which have not been labeled in the past, either as clear or SAR. Now, in that, for example, let's assume that there are 20,000 customers with specific financial behavior, and yet none of them are labeled. Now, you cannot ask all these customers or millions of customers to be labeled to build the model. The active learning is about identifying which customers to be labeled by the analysts for the model to learn most. So you can think of it like an iterative supervised learning, where at each step, the machine learning model defines also which customers are to be labeled so that the next supervised learning will be a better version. And in this labeling process, it can identify new features, or you can identify new money laundering methods. So you're basically tapping the, let's say, untapped parts in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
May I ask one?
Yes, please, Nezir Hocam.
And as an expert, thank you for the nice presentation, by the way, Dr. Kurt. as the expert of this area, like money washing, you learn, I think you know all techniques. Which one is the best?
We will not give you tips.
I wouldn't say that. You know, we are charging 10% for laundering. We don't give them out for free. Now, it really is like a game theoretic approach between the criminals and the people who try to catch them. You know, they find a new way, then you detect them, and they find another way. So there is no like a single best way to do that. But now there are some very complicated ways, which is very hard to detect when you jump from one jurisdiction to the other and from cryptocurrency to the other. The problem with the anti-money laundering system globally today is each country is trying to detect on their own. There is no international detection mechanism, but money can be laundered internationally. So money can fly from Turkey, go to Ukraine, go to London, go to New York, go back to Argentina in just seconds. And each jurisdiction only sees their part of the system. That's the most advanced, let's say, money laundering technique, which includes multiple money launderers from multiple countries, and it is extremely hard to detect. But using technologies like AI and using AI in blockchain, the law enforcement agencies are improving in that sense. And as for one, we are trying to give another tool so that they can be responsive in a much more faster fashion, because in the classic rule-based systems, it takes years to define new rules and scenarios, but AI and active learning can learn swiftly compared to traditional systems.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Actually, the money launderers the criminals are also professional software engineers, right?
Yeah, some of them are, yes. They are very smart, very, very smart people. Let me give you one thing to compare. The global market of anti-money laundering software is annually $10 billion, all right?
Yes.
The professional money launderers earn about $100 billion. So money laundering people earn 10 times than the anti-money laundering people like us. So, you know, they hire, let's say, smarter people, and they have more tools than us.
They could also start some companies to offer the solutions as well.
Yeah. There's also another Netflix movie called Startup, which is about building a cryptocurrency company to launder money. That's there's a lot to learn from Netflix in this area.
It's just like that Kemal Sunal movie. Hani vardı ya, camcıydı bu. Önce küçük kız camları kırıyor mahallede. Sonra Kemal Sunal gidiyor camları değiştiriyor gibi. Onun gibi bir durum aslında. Okay, any more questions? I guess everything is clear. And it's also like 11 in Montreal. Thank you, Dr. Kurt.
Thank you.
We are very thankful having your time for our Grad Talks. I hope to meet you in near future, to host you in our campus. Hopefully. Thank you, everyone. And we would like to meet you next week for the next week Grad Talks. Okay. Teşekkürler Ömer, kamera arkasında Nezir Hocam. Herkese çok teşekkürler. İyi akşamlar diliyoruz herkese. Haftaya görüşmek üzere diyelim. Sağ olun.